Hi, it's Pastor Andy, and I'm talking to you, getting ready to do the Friday preview. And oops, that's probably better. Sorry, it's Pastor Andy, and I'm doing the Friday preview for our Sunday. Um, you may not have been able to understand what I was saying through that, but that's just a part of our problem in today's world. It's hard enough to understand what people are saying through their masks, but really one of the challenges is we don't take time to understand people and what they are saying in general. Um, One of the best-selling books of all time was written by Stephen Covey, and it was called the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. In that book, one of the principles that he talks about is seek first to understand and then to be understood. We've just gone right past that at this point, and we only want to be understood. We never want to take the time to understand. And in fact, that same idea is so prevalent even within the context of that book. I've used that book to teach, for instance, at the seminary, and I was assigned it as a student at one point in time as well, because it has some great principles by which we can live. And yet, Covey was Mormon. I say was because he died a decade or so ago, whenever that was. And because of that, well, how can you use a Mormon's book in a Christian institution? Well, the book was not about faith. The book was about principles for living and living life correctly. And the principles are sound, whether you're a Christian or not. And so that's why it was used. So Covey took a lot of ridicule because of his faith, even in the midst of that book. And that's kind of where we are now, only it's not about a book, it's about a mask. And there are several Christians out there that are really berating people for wearing masks. Well, you can't be a Christian if you wear a mask. I'm sorry, I've read the Bible a few times, and I haven't read through the entire Bible since COVID started. I'm through Jeremiah again, but I haven't seen that part about masks being a part of my salvation. So you'll have to excuse me for that. But faith is becoming challenged because of if and how people wear their masks. Back in March, I shared that one of the reasons why our church was not going to meet was because of love, because of our need to love others. Certainly, there were restrictions that were asked on churches as well as most every business, unless it was an essential business, and there was the argument that churches are essential. And certainly, our faith is essential, but even though it was awkward and even though I don't think it was best for us not to be able to meet together, we were still able to have conversations. We were still able to meet. We were still able to even grow as a part of uh, having faith during this time of COVID, even though we weren't able to meet together. But thankfully, our area has largely been isolated from many of the challenges that have been related to COVID 19. Now, that may be changing, and certainly there are some very small towns in certain pockets of our country that are having massive spikes right now. We've even seen some of those spikes at this point. But my main point is not whether this is a hoax, whether you think that this whole COVID thing is not real, whether you think it's being overblown, whether you think it's underplayed. That's not my point at all. My point is that Jesus said that we are to love our neighbors as ourselves. And some of our neighbors are concerned about COVID more than perhaps you and I might be. And if we are to love our neighbors, if we are to bear one another's burdens, then one of the easiest ways that we can do that is to simply put on a mask and to help that. Now, this isn't a paid advertisement for mask wearing, but as we talk about this week's message and about love from Colossians 3, verses 12 through 15 primarily, we have to realize that loving our neighbor means sometimes we have to do things, we have to exercise our freedom in ways that we might not otherwise exercise. We're going to look at Romans 14 this week as a part of this as well to kind of kick off the message, because ultimately that's what freedom is. Freedom isn't the fact that I have the right to do anything. Rights have responsibilities. Freedom says that because I can do anything, I choose to do this for you. That's where freedom and love come together. And that's what we are called to do. So this week is Hub Sunday. We will have our offering for Picky. That is a part of our love for our neighbors halfway around the world, or at least a third of the way around the world. But even as we do that for our neighbors elsewhere, we need to think about how we love our neighbors here. Maybe that means wearing a mask. Maybe it doesn't. But if not, we just need to consider what it means to truly love our neighbor.